May 1975. A landlord entered an apartment building in Concord, New Hampshire, after rent had gone unpaid. Inside, he made a horrifying discovery. 24-year-old Judy Lord had been killed. But in another room, her infant son was still alive and unharmed. Detectives quickly developed a suspect, yet they could never prove who was responsible. For nearly 50 years, Judy's murder remained one of New Hampshire's unsolved cold cases. Until modern DNA technology finally uncovered the truth. Judy Lord was a 24-year-old mother living in Concord, New Hampshire. She was raising her young son and building a life with her family. Friends and acquaintances described her as friendly and outgoing. Like many young parents, she was focused on caring for her child and adapting to the responsibilities of family life. Nothing suggested that her life would soon become the center of a mystery that would last for decades. But everything changed in May 1975. On May 20, 1975, concern began to grow after rent payments were overdue. When a building representative entered Judy's apartment, they discovered her body inside. Nearby, her infant son was found alive. Police immediately launched an investigation. The scene suggested that a violent struggle had taken place. Investigators collected physical evidence and interviewed people connected to Judy's life. As detectives worked to reconstruct her final hours, attention quickly turned toward someone living nearby. But despite early suspicions, authorities lacked enough evidence to make a case that could withstand scrutiny. The investigation stalled, and the years began to pass. Throughout the late 1970s and beyond, investigators continued searching for answers. Evidence existed. Suspicions existed. But the science needed to prove the case simply did not exist yet. Forensic techniques available at the time were limited compared to modern standards. Some evidence that appeared important could not be conclusively linked to a suspect. Over the years, the case was reviewed multiple times. New investigators examined old reports. Evidence was preserved. Witness statements were revisited. Yet no breakthrough came. As decades passed, Judy Lord's murder joined the growing list of cold cases waiting for advances in science to provide answers. Many wondered whether the truth would ever be known. Years later, advances in forensic science gave investigators a new opportunity. Evidence collected in 1975 was re-examined using modern DNA testing methods that had not existed when the crime occurred. The results were significant. DNA evidence pointed investigators toward a man who had been considered during the original investigation decades earlier. For years, detectives had suspected they knew who was responsible. Now, science was finally able to support what investigators had long believed. The mystery that had survived for nearly half a century was finally beginning to unravel. In 2025, authorities publicly announced that Judy Lord's murder had finally been solved. Investigators identified her former neighbor, Robert D. Goodwin, as the person responsible for her death. The conclusion was based on modern forensic analysis and DNA evidence developed decades after the crime. But there was one final complication. Goodwin had died years earlier, in 2012. Because of that, he would never face criminal prosecution. No trial would take place. No conviction would be entered in court. Yet for investigators and Judy's surviving family members, the answers they had sought for nearly 50 years had finally arrived. The case was closed. The mystery was over. Robert Goodwin would never stand trial. But after 50 years of unanswered questions, Judy Lord's family finally learned the truth. Her case stands as a reminder that time does not always erase evidence. Sometimes, decades later, science can speak for those who no longer can. And even when justice cannot be delivered in a courtroom, the truth still matters. For Judy Lord, that truth finally arrived nearly half a century later.